You're very welcome to this week's edition of The State We're In. A number of years ago, there was a major environmental health problem in the Shannon estuary. In fact, it dated right back to the 1990s, and an expose on RTE television led to an investigation by the Environmental Protection Agency. And this investigation was to look at the reason why so many cattle were dying in the area. It's near Askeaton in County Limerick. And also there was a very high rate of cancer in the area. The Geoghegan family insisted that their health be monitored as part of this investigation, and so several blood samples were taken from the Geoghegan family. It later transpired that these blood samples went missing, and when the EPA report was published, it stated that it was the farmers basically were responsible for the health issues in the cattle, and it was stated that the blood samples from the Geoghegans were never actually part of this investigation. Due to pressure from the Geoghegan family, there was an inquiry held into the missing blood samples, and this was led by Dr. Kevin Kelleher. And the conclusion of this investigation was that the samples went missing before they actually went to the laboratory. Under freedom of information, the Geoghegan family managed to get documentation showing that the results of their blood samples were actually discussed internally within the health board after they returned from the laboratory. And Micheál Martin was Minister for Health at the time, and Pat and Nuala Geoghegan had a meeting with Micheál Martin, and present at that meeting was the then Assistant CMO, Tony Holohan. The Geoghegans called for a public inquiry into the missing blood samples. Micheál Martin later turned down that request, and for the last 2 decades, the Geoghegans have campaigned for a public inquiry into the missing blood samples. This involves the Minister for Health of the time, Leo Varadkar, Simon Harris, and Stephen Donnelly. The issue of the missing blood samples and the call for a public inquiry has been raised in the Dáil over the years by people like Dr. Michael Harty, the former TD, and by Catherine Connolly. And in more recent times, on the day that the Dáil went into summer recess, the issue was raised by Deputy Mattie McGrath. I have put a post on my page giving very, very detailed, a very detailed report on this whole issue of the missing blood samples if you want to investigate it further, and I will put a link to it in the commentary section underneath this video. Today I'm joined by Pat Geoghegan, and he's going to brief me on the latest developments relating to Aughinish Alumina, the largest bauxite plant in Europe that's located on the Shannon estuary. Pat, you're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
Hi Anna, how are you doing?
Pat, you heard the brief outline I gave there of what happened relating to the missing blood samples, and while we don't want to focus on that issue this morning, is there anything or any detail that should be added to it?
Yeah, there is a detail out there at the time. I suppose we had pushed with Micheál Martin, who was Minister for Health at the time. We had met in the Dáil. We also at that meeting was Dr. Tony Houlihan, who's very prominent now and who I think everyone in Ireland knows very well. In 2001, 2002, Dr. Houlihan has said there should be no inquiry into our missing samples. He said that the Aughinish report was, in fact, a brilliant report. It covered everything, and it came to the conclusion that it wasn't environmental pollution that was involved. Look, we believe that these samples were evidence at the time of who was polluting us, not alone who was polluting us as a family, but also the community as a whole, because this is airborne, Anna. This was pollution in the air. This was what we were breathing in, this is what our animals were breathing in, and this is what we were falling sick from. And for the results of our samples to show anything would in fact connect those involved. And we allegedly believe that it was Aughinish Alumina, because when we walk out in the farm, once the wind direction was coming from there, we could feel our faces being burned. We found it hard to breathe. Look, we had the respiratory problems were very bad, the fatigue, the pains in the joints and the bones, and we were all getting affected. I got worse first, then Nuala. Nuala suffered 3 miscarriages through it. I later got a suspected heart attack, and in 2009 I got a massive heart attack, and thankfully I'm here today just to keep our story being told and to try and get justice, not alone for us, Anna, but for the whole community, because as you said at the outset, the cancer is huge in the area. Young people have died from cancer and no one wants to give an answer. But getting back to your blood samples, is that we were told that our samples had been sent away for testing and results were back. And look, Dr. Keller said that our samples were not even part of the Aughinish investigation. I don't know what other investigation we were in. It could only be part of the Aughinish investigation and Aughinish investigation alone. So look, I think an inquiry, Micheál Martin at the time had considered looking at the internal inquiry that was set up by the Midwestern Health Board, headed up by Dr. Sean Conroy. And we believe that if that 3-man panel that Minister Martin had considered at the time went ahead, it would have given us a full inquiry, because it would have discovered the cover-up that was involved in controlling what was going on, taking in our samples and controlling that we would never get the results, or that they would go missing. So look, there is another bit of evidence there that I can add to you, is that we have a freedom of information where it says that there was a proposed meeting trying to be arranged between the minister at the time, Micheál Martin, and an official. Now, we have looked through freedom of information. There is no documents showing this. We believe it may have been off the record, and that we may never see a document. But what we are looking for, and we have Catherine Connolly and others have looked for him, the Minister for Health, Minister Donnelly, to ask Micheál Martin if he did have a meeting with a certain personnel, which is named in these FOI documents, and was there something spoken about that he immediately went and stopped us having an inquiry. Like we already, that Tony Houlihan had already set the wheels in motion 2001, 2002 to stop the inquiry, but Minister Martin was still kind of moving ahead a little bit, because he had a document that we gave him from a doctor saying that our results were back, they were tested, and the results will be sent to us. Like the findings in the internal inquiry said that these samples all suddenly went missing human error. So how could they go missing in human error if they were already tested?
Okay, so you have given us a very good outline there. Now, I just want to state categorically that there is and never has been any evidence to link or to connect Aughinish Alumina in any way with the pollution that is occurring on the Shannon estuary, or with the pollution that has led to health issues in the area, or that has led to the declining health of animals in the area. So for people that are not really familiar with Aughinish Alumina or have never heard about Aughinish Alumina, can you just give us, Pat, a very, very brief description of Aughinish, a little bit about the company and what they're involved in?
Yeah, it's an alumina company, and they bring in bauxite by ships. They unload it at the jetty. They move it up through the plant in conveyor belts. They add the likes of caustic and other chemicals to take out the impurities from it. Then the final product is the alumina dust, and it's moved out to Europe and abroad. Now, the other thing is the waste is pushed out to these big open mud ponds. It goes out in liquid forms, and it just lays out on the very top in layers, and it just hardens, and it's there. There's 250 acres in the first pond, there's 200 in the second pond, that's 450. Then you have approximately 50 million tons of red toxic waste sitting on the verge of the River Shannon. So we have the waste, we have the problem, they have the alumina gone, and they have the profits. That's the best way to describe what this company is about.
Okay, so maybe we'll just pause for a moment and we'll have a look at aerial footage of Aughinish Alumina on the Shannon estuary. Is it 50 million tonne of waste?
Of toxic waste, and it's 450 acres in size.
And 450 acres in size. And the final still there, with the arrow pointing to it, is where the Environmental Protection Agency has recently given Aughinish Alumina permission or a licence to blast. And Pat, that's really what we're about to discuss now. That's really the purpose of my conversation with you today. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, all we can call it is a reckless first application by Aughinish Alumina, a decision by Limerick County Council, our appeal to An Bord Pleanála, which was turned down, and recently the review granted by the EPA, that there would be rock blasting just meters from these mud ponds that store this 50 million tons of toxic waste. Now, this is not just about taking in a machine and with a rock breaker taking out rock. This is about setting explosives just meters now from the ponds, the embankments that store these ponds. They're only crushed stone, and they will be setting explosives next, just meters from them, blasting out the rock. Then they'll be bringing in machines to crush that rock. Then they'll be transferring that and loading it and moving it around these mud ponds to heighten the wall. Like, what they're trying to do here is that they're going to heighten the wall so that they can store further toxic waste. You're putting pressure on these embankments by taking them up so far. Why they're taking them up so far? They cannot go to another country. No other country will allow. It's a Russian company now that's running this. They will not allow them into any country because of this waste and the pollution that such an industry can cause. So we're left with this in the Shannon estuary. The people who will pick up the tab on this will be the taxpayer at the end of the day. But this rock blasting is so dangerous, Anna, that if it goes wrong or it unearths the embankments and a section of the embankment goes, then this toxic waste is going to flow into the Shannon. There is no comeback from it. They will have passed the line that there will be no return. And why they have allowed this is because this company for 3 decades have been getting away with what they want. Once they ask for something, it's a matter of saying, sir, how high can I jump for you? And this is a one that should never have been granted. Like, why would you want to do this? Because we have put forward the argument is that the stone that they want, they can get it right across the road in a quarry run by Roadstone. They can transport it across the road by lorry and straight down into the plant, and that's the job done. Like, why would you risk something so close to a pond storing so much waste? We saw in Hungary in 2010 in what happened there to a community. People got killed. It wiped out 2 villages because this red mud broke the embankments and it flowed down and it ended up in the Danube. So look, I don't think we have any return here, and they've gone so reckless here that people, even at this late stage, people who work that needs the estuary, that makes a living from it, environmentalists and the whole lot, still needs to look at this. And even there won't be rock blasting until April of next year, is that we have time for people to come together, maybe to protest and to stop this, because the blasting is going to go on for 10 years. It's going to go from April to September. It'll do 1, 2 or 3 blasts maybe in a week. But our concern is that the EPA, and in allowing these people, have only looked for one initial report after the first blasting. And that report would be saying, have we caused any damage? Have we caused any damage to the mud ponds, to the embankment walls? Like, they're only 50 meters away from the pipeline, the gas pipeline feeding the plant. And we have produced documents, scientific documents, to show that there is no guarantee when you blast, vertical, horizontal, or whatever. The vibration can cause damage. Look, it cannot be guaranteed, and we're saying is even in the precautionary principle, this should not go ahead because they cannot guarantee a safety. And if something happens, there is no comeback for the estuary, no comeback even for the environment anymore on the Shannon estuary, and the damage will be huge.
Okay, so that's a very, very worrying prospect, Pat. I do know that you had some measure of success. There was a proposal to incinerate that mud waste in the CRH plant in Mungret in Limerick when they applied for a new license to incinerate, and the EPA turned down that request to incinerate the red mud in Limerick. So that was, I suppose, a small victory, Pat.
Yes, it was small, but that was only to take the heat off at the time with the EPA. Like, CRH at any time can ask to review their license. In doing so, they can get this red mud back in, and they can move it. Like, they can move that into Limerick, no problem, because there is the old railway track still heading in right next to the mud ponds in Aughinish, and there's a link off of it right into CRH inside in Limerick, so into the Irish cement. So it's still a lovely way of moving this red mud by carriage. The tracks are there, and we still believe that it was only taken off the table just to take the heat off on the day. Aughinish has no place to go with this red mud. The only place they're going is up to the sky, right? The higher they go, it means that the red dust is drying, which means that we have the red dust on our farm. It's there for the animals to eat on the grass. It's there for them to drink in the trucks. It's also there all over the country. We have reports from Mayo, we have Donegal, and people have this red mud. And in that red dust that they're getting, there is uranium, arsenic, lead, cadmium, aluminium, everything that's dangerous that you want is in that. And the worst of all is that it comes in small particles. So if you're out there, and when we're out on the farm, we can feel this thing just hitting our faces. And we have no doubt that it's the red dust. It's so small, it's so minute, you will take it, you will breathe it in, and you will inhale it, and it'll go into your lungs. So like, can you imagine, Anna, if we have 50 million at the moment, when these people be finished, we'll have 100, we'll have 120 million, and the mud ponds will be so high, the embankments will be fit to burst on their own, and you have 10 years of rock blasting. So like, when the EPA looks for an initial report, they're only looking for one report. What we're saying is that there should be a report after every blasting to see what damage has been done, whether there is been done close to the gas pipeline, whether it's been done close to the plant, whether it's been done to the embankment walls, or to the public, how that people have their houses locally. Now, I have just a document here, and I might just read to you as to how serious the EPA have really taken this issue. Can I read it there for your?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it's an inspector's report to the directors of the EPA dated the 17th of September 2020. And it says, vibrations transmitted through the ground and pressure waves through the air, that's the air pressure, can for a few seconds shake nearby buildings and may cause nuisance to people. Audible noise accompanies air pressure. In relation to vibration from blasting, the specific charge variations and uncertainties in relation to ground condition means that vibration levels from blasting cannot be predicted with absolute certainty. Now, that is telling you that the EPA are telling us here that you look, if there's going to be shaking of nearby buildings or whatever, it's only going to be a nuisance, right? So if walls are going to be cracking, or your foundation is going to be in trouble, it's only a nuisance. So let's move on. You have 10 years of a period to put up with it. But to us, it's only a nuisance, but we cannot hold up Aughinish, we believe, and they can't guarantee it, which we proved in our objection to Limerick County Council with absolute certainty. And if you cannot do that under precautionary principle, you cannot proceed with this reckless project.
Okay, Pat, so just to wind up, you did mention that there is a window of opportunity from now until next April for people to come together to, I suppose, become active in agitating against this licence. What options are open to you now that the licence has been granted? Surely that's it. There's nothing you can do about it.
There is, and look, it's a judicial review. Look, no one wants to go down a judicial review. You need 100 or 200,000, right? And they know that, So, what we are saying publicly can change things, because people just need to know how serious this is, how reckless it is, how Limerick County Council planning section, how on board Penala, how the EPA continues to look after Aughinish Alumina and Rusal. And in doing so, you will come to the day where you will rule their decisions, Anna. And this is one of them that we believe has gone so much off the scale that it's unthinkable that they got it. But they knew they were going to get it because they get everything. And they got an inquiry at the time that cost 5.3 million, the Department of Agriculture, the EPA, the Health Board, Tagish, all said that it was the problems of the farmers. It wasn't environmental pollution. So if you have a state investigation that can give you that back in 2002, you can get up in the morning, Anna, and you know that the state investigation and all those agencies have to continue to protect this company no matter what. Because if they don't and they get caught at it, then you have a serious cover-up by the state. You have the Taoiseach, you have Leo Varadkar, you have every minister, you have every TD that's in the Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael party, and even the Greens who will protect these people. So why should you be worried what you're going to do or what you're going to blast away or get rid of? Because the taxpayer will pick it up at the end of the day, and these people will have gone, they will have left such a mess. There will be no getting back the Shannon estuary, and the damage to the area, the damage to human health. At this moment, Anna, it's so serious, the pollution. It's absolutely frightening. And we are even frightened on our farm at the moment that it's so bad. You can't walk the fields, your airways gets cut off. You will get heat and sensation in your chest, and you will throw up because you're getting a reaction to the chemicals. It's like you're getting a heart attack, the pain down the left arms, out through the gums. Our daughter Megan has it. My wife has it. Like when one day, the three of us, we were down in our knees getting sick from it. It was so bad. And this is what they have done at the moment. They have created such a monster, Anna, which includes the Taoiseach and Leo and the whole lot of them, right up to Donnelly, who doesn't want any of this inquiry ever coming out with what we have on them, is that the people are paying a high price with their lives, and the children will pay it for the rest of their days to come.
Okay, Pat, as I said before, very, very worrying. And I want to thank you, Pat, for your time today. And also, I've known you since around 2004, and you have been a tireless campaigner on this issue. And indeed, you have been campaigning for many more years before I met you. But you are relentless in your pursuit of environmental justice, yourself and your wife, Nuala. So I want to thank you for this update. To those of you who have been watching, I'm sure that you are quite concerned about what you have heard. M-Compass Media is a new online platform where we bring you the news that you're not going to find on mainstream media. We'll never ask you for donations, but what you can do is please share this video and get the message out to a wider audience. And as I said at the outset, the link to the post that I did on the missing blood samples is available in the commentary box below. Until we meet again, Bannocht de Arif Galair.